Good morning. It's April 3rd, 2022. This is To My Liberal Friends, and I'm John Haddo. I want to talk a little bit about the immigration problem we have. How many of you think there's a crisis on the southern border and it's becoming a major problem? How many listening to this think we need to come up with a compromise on immigration that might draw bipartisan support? I've thought about this problem for many years, and I've developed a framework for a solution that might work. The first thing we have to realize is we have several million immigrants that came here illegally and have been here for many years. They work in the shadows, and the majority of them are law-abiding people, so any solution has to address these people. Second, any solution has to also address the dreamers. These kids were brought here at young ages by their parents illegally, but they've only lived in the United States, and that's all they know. So looking at a framework that I would draw up as a compromise piece of legislation, the first thing I would do is issue a national photo ID card. The federal government would issue this document and use biometrics to try and prevent counterfeiting these kind of cards. The penalty for using a counterfeit ID card would be prison time and immediate expulsion from the country upon release. This card would be used for many things, including voter ID, and every citizen would need to get one, and the government would appropriate the funds to ensure that every citizen has the opportunity to obtain this form of ID. Then you have to look at those immigrants that have been here for a lengthy period of time, as I've mentioned. I would start out with those that can prove they've been in the country for more than 4 years, have not broken any laws, and have been paying taxes. I would issue them a different kind of ID card with biometrics, but it would differ from the citizen card and would allow them to legally work in the country and to come out of the shadows. It would also put them on a pathway to citizenship over a 10-year period if that's what they desire. So once you've implemented this form of ID, it becomes necessary to produce to get any job, and I mean any job in this country. Employers who opt to hire somebody illegally will be the ones that suffer the consequences with a large fine for the first offense, treble that fine the second offense, and possibly a criminal prosecution of the chief officer of the offending company. So how fast do you think corporations would issue strong memos to ensure there are no violations? The compromise legislation would then have to address immigration and rework the amnesty system. It's obvious to everyone that looks at the issue that the overwhelming majority of immigrants crossing the border and claiming amnesty are actually coming here for economic reasons. Now I understand that. They want a better life, but we can't take everybody in this world that wants a better life. So we need to set up a system that allows for adjudication of this claim within 1 month, and all applicants are detained in ICE facilities as the process goes forward. If the claim is confirmed, then they're released into the United States under some form of guidance. If it's denied, they're immediately transported back to their original nation. Then we have to move to another problem that exists, and that is the use of anchor babies. That's all based on the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship and equal legal rights to all slaves that had been emancipated during the Civil War. The phrase that is used is, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States, end quote, are considered citizens. One of the impetus for this amendment and the language was in the aftermath of the Civil War, some southern states were passing laws which basically said, if your parent were not citizens, you're not a citizen, therefore you cannot vote. It was aimed at blocking these freed slaves from voting. Now, I agree with the intent of the amendment, and in Congress the debate was heated and much of the discussion centered on, quote, the country of jurisdiction, end quote. By that I mean they looked at where did these people come from and who are we granting this citizenship to and what was the country of jurisdiction that they came from. The first major test of this case law was Wong v. U.S. 1898. Ark Wong was of Chinese descent and was born in California. His parents were immigrants from China who came to the United States to work on the railroad. As they became elderly, they decided to return to China and retire. Wong, having only known the United States, opted to stay in California. He visited his parents once and returned to California. On the second time he visited, he was denied entry to the country based on the Chinese Exclusion Act. He sued based on the 14th Amendment, and the case was expedited to the Supreme Court. He was held in a ship instead of San Francisco Bay during the case. The Supreme Court, in my opinion, correctly ruled in his favor, but that he was, in fact, a citizen of the United States. But here's the rub in this case. When he was born, his parents were in the country legally under the law at that time. So I agree the court made that decision based on that fact. I don't think when the 14th Amendment was debated and passed, anyone was considering the massive illegal immigration issue that we have today. And I don't think anybody was sneaking across the border to become slaves at that time. And this is not just a southern border issue, and it's not just an Hispanic issue, no matter how much the media want to frame it as that. We have thousands of immigrants from Europe and the Middle East who come to the United States on travel visas and overstay them. If you were to go to Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., and stand outside the International Arrival Gate, you will see travelers arriving from the Middle East with 5 to 6 suitcases, all large and taped up. Now, does that look like a tourist to you? They have brought everything they could possibly bring, paid the extra baggage fees, and have every intention of just staying in the United States. In California, we've uncovered what are called Chinese baby hotels. A Chinese woman gets pregnant, comes to the United States on a travel visa, then stays here until her child is born, thus giving the child U.S. citizenship. The Border Patrol, if you listen to news reports, are now catching immigrants at the southern border from multiple countries around the world. They simply travel to Mexico and arrange to walk across the border. And they claim asylum when there is no threat to them in their home nation. I would bring either a test case to the Supreme Court on the issue of a child being born in the United States when the parents entered illegally, or offer a change to the 14th Amendment. This is just a framework for a compromise immigration bill. Whatever Congress passes, it should be bipartisan and should include all these multiple factors. There should be strong border security and strong laws in employing illegal workers. It should provide a pathway to citizenship for those that have been here for a lengthy period of time. And I would be interested in comments on how you might frame this kind of compromise in your own mind. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.